Well, hello, welcome back. I'm going to be talking about this book today, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I'm really excited to go over this one today. This is one of the first books that I read about 2 years ago, and it took me a whole year to get through. So it did take me quite a long time. Anything print, it always takes me a long time, but there was other books that would come up that'd be like, you need to read this now, or other biblical readings would come forth. So it did take me a while to get through. So instead of me trying to put everything together and summarize it, I think the best way to do this is to post a video in the description below, which summarizes the book, gives more detail in the seven habits. And it's actually, I wouldn't say that this book is quite a masterpiece. It's very good. It's very good for a first read and then just kind of fine tuning it afterwards, just kind of quick going over a summary. Or if you're really lost, sometimes a second read is warranted. But I know a lot of people have read this for their education. They were forced into it and they're like, oh, this is too much. I wasn't one of those that it was required reading for. I know other people have told me this. They swear by this book. This is one of the best books they ever read. To me, it's not quite there, but it is a fantastic read. I would recommend it for anyone that has never read it before. But today we're going to be going over the funeral scene exercise. So for those of you who have read the book, you already know what this entails. But for those of you who are unfamiliar, I'm going to read it out loud. And I'm not going to have text on the screen, unfortunately, for this section because it's so long and I couldn't figure out how to do that. So just bear with me reading this from the book for you. All right? In your own mind's eye, see yourself going to the funeral of a loved one. Picture yourself driving to the funeral parlor or the chapel, parking the car, and getting out. As you walk inside the building, you notice the flowers, the soft organ music. You see the faces of friends and family you pass along the way. You fear the shared sorrow of losing, the joy of having known, that radiates from the hearts of the people there. As you walk down to the front of the room and look inside the casket, you suddenly come face to face with yourself. This is your funeral 3 years from today. All these people have come to honor you, to express feelings of love and appreciation for your life. As you take a seat and wait for the services to begin, you look at the program in your hand. There are to be 4 speakers. The first is from your family, immediate and also extended, children, brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who have come from all over the country to attend. The second speaker is one of your friends, someone who can give a sense of who you were as a person. The third speaker is from your work or profession, and the fourth is from your church or some community organization where you've been involved in service. Now think deeply. What would you like each of these speakers to say about you and your life? What kind of husband, wife, father, or mother would you like their words to reflect? What kind of son or daughter or cousin? What kind of friend? What kind of working associate? What character would you like them to have seen in you? What contributions? What achievements? What would you want them to remember? Look carefully at the people around you. What difference would you like to have made in their lives? Before you read any further, take a few minutes to jot down your impressions. It will greatly increase your personal understanding of habit 2, beginning with the end in mind. So, when I first read this exercise, I was journaling a lot about this specific idea. Later in the chapter, it goes over your center, what you're really focused on, and to make a mission statement out of that center, and to kind of go over those ideas throughout the chapter, do's and don'ts. And it was actually a really focused exercise on how to handle that mission statement and where you should go with it. So I started journaling and doing different exercises with that. And for me, it really turned into a very unfocused practice. And that's why I'm not going to go over every single note that I wrote down, because it really became an unfocused exercise until I made a couple adjustments. And I'll get into that in a couple seconds. But how this was displayed is it had a very optimistic look about what you should be doing uh, in that scenario. If you're trying to aim for something good, let's go from an optimistic angle. Let's see what people could say about you in this most ideal situation, like having everything work out. In if you could visualize the highest goal that you can attain, the highest effective thing you can attain, and just erase everything else around it, burn off and burn away all the stuff that isn't making you an effective person, that more or less is the direction that this was taking it in. Now, that did work for me a little bit, but it just became so unfocused because I have so many goals and so many things I like to do, because that's just kind of person I am. So in order to focus this exercise a little bit, I went very pessimistic. So instead of that funeral scene having everyone there talking glowing things about me and saying all these nice things, I said, let me have a funeral where nobody shows up. And I'm the only one there looking at my body in the casket. I know that sounds extremely morbid, but that's where my mind took me. And I actually want to walk you through that and what that would feel like. But it really placed on my heart the idea that what is it that I really fear in the worst case scenario? Like, you take away everything else, because for me, a lot of what I value is, self-admittedly, what other people would say about me and what other people think. But I had to remove that variable, because if I was so focused on what other people said about me, I would not be solving what the center is, and my focus wouldn't be on the center. It would be other focused. It would be focused on what other goals people had for me. So I wanted to really eliminate that from this exercise, and that's why I'm going to go into that in more detail. So what is it that I actually fear the most out of anything that would primarily set me up to order my life in such a way that I'm truly putting first things first? And that fear for me is a meaningless death. Now, let me unpack that a little bit, because that's a little bit of a loaded term. What I don't mean by that is death in and of itself. Like, let's say I have a senseless death where I go out and get hit by a vehicle tomorrow. Horrible. I know, it's horrible. These are horrible things we're talking about here. But if that were to happen, I feel at least at peace on some level. That's not my primary motivator. My primary motivator isn't nihilism either. Let's say that there's no meaning to anything. That in and of itself is at least a calm presence for some people. Like, let's say there's a finite reality in which I find myself in, and at the end of my life, it's nothing. That doesn't really drive me towards what it is that my primary goal would be. That's actually, I know that some people would say, oh, that's a horrible, frightening existence. And I'd actually argue that's somewhat the easy way out, because then if there's nothing that really matters, then there's nothing at stake, and there's nothing to really worry about at the end of the day. At the same time, is it hell that motivates me? And for me, that's not exactly what the primary fear would be. I know that that's a fear for some people. I know that that is what is the motivating factor, and that could actually be a separate video topic entirely. Now, what I also don't mean by that is, oh, well, I tried to seek the truth and I didn't get every right answer. There's going to be room, so long as that I'm seeking God, and as so long as I'm seeking Christ, that I might not have every single thing correct in my life. I don't fear failure necessarily, is what I'm trying to say by that. I don't necessarily fear the idea that I might have just accidentally got something wrong. That is something, again, that I might address in some other time, because I know that also is a legitimate fear for people. But what is it that I truly fear at the end of the day, because we're getting closer and closer to it, is if I was sent here to do something. I was created uniquely for a specific purpose, and I didn't do it. It falls into meaninglessness then, because everything that I've done is meaningless when I was supposed to find meaning. And for me, that is the primary thing that would set me straight in order to find my center, in order to find what the truth is. So the way that I am responding to that fear isn't to be paralyzed by it. It's actually to respond to that by understanding that everything that I do, even to the smallest degree, matters. And even taking the optimistic view on the exercise that we did earlier, what I do with other people actually does matter. The way that I treat them, the way that I treat myself matters. The way that I treat God and not placing Him first. If I'm failing to do that, I am not putting first things first, and I am not prioritizing things with the end in mind. So in order to come up with a cohesive mission statement from that, what I came up with was love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself, and to deny yourself, to take up the cross daily and follow Jesus. Now, most of you will actually recognize all of that. And next time, what I'll do is to go over that in a little bit more detail. But here's my challenge for today. Considering the exercise we went over earlier, are you putting first things first in your life? Are your priorities God's priorities? And are you truly doing what it is that you're meant to be doing right now? These are all really difficult questions that it was so difficult for me to answer. But when I went through the exercise, when I journaled things down, when I put the work in, it really strengthened my faith to do this. And it actually was a bit of a catalyst for me to even start this series, to really just dive deep into this sort of stuff. And it was really enjoyable. I can't actually wait to get to my mission statement next time. I'm really excited about that. So until then, we'll meet next time. Stay salty.